who is this Ray Peat character and why is he blowing up? Why is he so popular? What is a Peter? I think you know this more than most. So tell to me a little bit about Ray Peat.
Well, that's a great question. Well, he was a biologist. He basically was studying in what they refer to as now the bioenergetic space of health and nutrition. I don't think he really coined that term. I don't think he coined any terms. I think Ray was just an individual looking for the truth and asking question after question that would make him go down probably different rabbit holes than what most people were standard teachings would teach you. I think he constantly questioned the status quo and read numerous other researchers who were also questioning the status quo and to try to understand, is this all making sense? So when you start to read Ray's work, it is complex and it kind of makes your head hurt a lot because you're like, how is he getting to these conclusions? Where is he going? And he kind of talks in a language that is just Ray. And so I think whether it's purposeful or not, he definitely wants you to think about yourself and the situations and ask more questions. And so he's definitely someone, it's like, let's just not take whatever is being told to you and let's start to question it and put it into different contexts and understand when it's true and when it's not. Because, and I think that's what he also kind of created too, is making context really important when certainly in the world of nutrition, because it all changes depending on the context. And when you can understand that with nutrition, you'll start getting so confused because then all of these different thought process or protocols can make sense in certain contexts.
Mm,
And then other contexts, they don't. And so Ray was really good with helping people understand, or trying to, going, well, in this situation, this is why this is working. And then this other situation, it might be detriment to you. But if we want, but ultimately we want it for you to get into this situation so that it can work for you. So in my experience with Ray, and I did numerous podcasts with him and exchanged numerous hundreds of emails with him, he was just literally one of the most giving, selfless individuals on this planet that was really just feeling that it was his duty to share his information without trying to charge everybody for it on a numerous level. I mean, he was what, 86 when he passed, and he was working to to that end of that day. And I think that's the way he probably chose and wanted to go out in this
mm.
world. So for that, but I think, all of us have learned immensely from him and continue to want to share his perspective because I think he had a lot of things right, or most things right.
Yeah, I think in the current day, people are really starting to wake up to this idea that truth isn't what we've been told it is always, or it's certainly not as black and white as we are, given or served up by whoever, the three-letter governing agencies and stuff like that. And it's almost it's a tragic case in the sense that Ray is almost gaining more popularity after he passed away, but it's wonderful testament to his work and his curious mind, and it's infiltrating my sphere more and more every day. I first heard the name Ray Peat probably a few years ago, and now every time I jump on Twitter or I speak to guests that you're probably familiar with, like Jay Feldman and those people, they've been massively influenced by Ray Peat's work, and I know it's influenced how you guide and how you write and how you coach and everything like that too. So maybe, I mean, you can correct me if I'm wrong here because it sounds like that, word nuance gets us in trouble today. But what is the Ray Peat diet? Is there such a thing?
I would say no. I mean, and he would say no as well. In fact, when he would be asked that question, he would be like, I don't even know what people are talking about. There's no Ray Peat. Now, Ray would certainly say what he was eating and how he would try to solve certain symptoms or situations. But I think there's a generalized food that people are told to eat, and they're basically, these foods are suggested usually because they have an ease of digestibility. The nutrients are bioavailable. They have low anti-nutrients or things in there that might create digestive distress. And those are the basis of why those foods are recommended. Can everybody handle those foods at their current state of health? No. Will everybody have a great response to those foods? No. But that should be a basis of what we want to try to get them to start using. Certainly that he certainly was a person that supported the use of carbohydrates, and primarily because that is the preferred and best energy source And we do produce the most energy over time with utilizing carbohydrates as our fuel source. And he was clear on what those carbohydrates were. Those were primarily fruits or tropical fruits and honey or even white sugar or some starches, although Ray didn't eat any of those. He didn't eat, I don't think he ate sourdough bread for the last 20 or 30 years. He hadn't eaten potatoes. But he wouldn't tell you those were bad foods. He would say that absolutely these are good foods. They the way they're prepared is good. Sourdough is good. It's how it's prepared. Potato can be filled with lots of potassium and other nutrients. However, for him and wherever he was in his state of his life, those foods were not being used by him. But do I use them? Absolutely. Does my body function well with them? Sure. Do other people work well with those? No. And so what he constantly wanted to grasp is that, again, the context of you and where you are in your health will depend on what diet is needed for you. Personally, I mean, I've put people on almost a vegetarian diet with some protein sources that are animal-based, but because that's what their system needed initially, and we're working through those. And that's why I believe some diets that are extreme can work really well for people with their certain situations. It's just not, it might not be the best long-term approach for longevity or health, but can they be used to get them out of a certain situation? Sure, absolutely. We just don't want to maybe stay there. And so his approach was always very fluid. As you change, maybe the diet changes. And so if you are aware of how your system functions and what resources it needs to function optimally, then you can transition and change as new things happen in your life where it's more stress, or maybe you become less stressed, and then you can add more foods into your diet.
Yeah, this bioindividuality piece and the fact that, you know, what got us here is not necessarily going to be a thing that gets us there. And just because something worked for a period of time doesn't mean it's going to work forever. It seems to make a lot of sense when you state it out loud, but the dietary space becomes wrapped around the axle on ideologies, right? And carnivorism is a really good example. Paul started there. I've had my bouts with carnivorism, and because at that time it works wonderfully, you feel amazing, and it's probably because you're eliminating a lot of the things that are causing the digestive distress, etc., and you're healing. And then maybe if you stay on that long enough, the wheels start to fall off, and then you start to add back in these foods, and it could be a variety of things. That might be veganism, that might be all. I think it's opening your mind to the possibility that different things work for different people at different times, but not getting too wedded to this is the way and becoming like borderline a religious fanatic about this is the diet for everyone, which we see happening all over social media, right? It's the vegans arguing with the keto folks and the you name it. All right, friends, thanks for tuning in to another episode of Radical Health Radio. We got a fresh new podcast for you every Wednesday. If you enjoyed the show, consider liking, subscribing, reviewing, and rating us on your podcast platform. It helps to spread this message of radical health. We'll see you next week.